Volodymyr Zelenskyy is by almost all accounts the world's most popular leader, and for good reason too. His bravery in the face of a Russian invasion has been nothing short of remarkable and exactly what his people have needed during these unbelievably trying times. But it wasn't always shaping up to go this way for Zelenskyy. This former comedian who rose to fame for his portrayal of a fictional president was at one point considered to be something of a joke, but then he'd go on to win the election with 73% of the vote. Shortly thereafter, things would kick into overdrive. Now, a whole bunch of us are concerned with only one thing. How is Ukraine going to survive a war with Russia? It's a Herculean task, and the leader in charge of the resistance used to be the Ukrainian voice of Paddington Bear. We're living in strange times here, people, and they're only gonna get stranger. Want to learn more about the world's newest political folk hero? Then stay tuned for the story of Volodymyr Zelenskyy here for you on Famous Life. Volodymyr Zelenskyy was born on January 25, 1978 in Kryvyi, in what was formerly the USSR, but is now very much the Ukraine. His father was a professor and the head of the Department of Cybernetics and Computing Hardware at the Kryvyi State University of Economics and Technology, while his mother used to work as an engineer. Going back even further, Zelenskyy has Jewish heritage, and his grandfather served in the Red Army during World War II after losing his father and three brothers to the atrocities committed during the Holocaust. When Zelenskyy was a little older than a small child, his family relocated to Mongolia for 4 years before eventually returning to the city of his birth. Like many people born in that area of the Ukraine, Zelenskyy learned Russian as a child, but he also became fluent in the Ukrainian and English. By 1995, he was attending school at the Kyiv National Economic University, and he graduated in 2000 with a law degree. Although he was licensed to practice law, Zelenskyy had other intentions for his career. While a student, he had become enamored with the theater and soon decided to enter the world of entertainment. His comedy roots lie in a longtime Russian showbiz staple, referred to KVN. That acronym roughly stands for the Club for the Jolly and Resourceful, a former popular Soviet saying. So, what exactly is KVN? Well, imagine a sketch comedy group that functions more like a professional sports team by traveling from city to battle other comedy groups for a spot in the major league. All of the top matches are televised across both Russia and Ukraine. It's actually kind of a cool idea, sort of like America's Got Talent. Zelenskyy's team was called Quarter 95, and it repped the city of his birth, Kryvyi. Zelenskyy wasn't only just a member of the team, however, he was also team captain and performed under the name of Vovan. Once Quarter 95 really began to make waves in the competition, Zelenskyy formed a production company under the same name. Studio would go on to produce dozens of television series and events for both Russia and the Ukraine, including the Ukrainian version of Dancing with the Stars, which Zelenskyy would win in 2006. Putting aside the fact that it's kind of like Jeff Probst's winning Survivor, Zelenskyy's popularity continued to climb higher and higher. After having taken over the world of television, Zelenskyy set his sights on film. He began to produce, co-write, and sometimes star in trashy Russian comedies. The first was released in 2009, entitled No Love in the City, about three friends living it up in New York City when a curse from a magic fairy leaves them impotent until they can find true love. That's like Sex and the City meets Cinderella. Definitely not a combination I'd ever imagine mixing together. Shortly thereafter, Zelenskyy began to move towards politics, but not before making a huge impression on the people of Ukraine during his run on the television series Servant of the People. This 2015 sitcom was a heartfelt satire of Ukrainian politics, in which a decent man finds himself suddenly thrust in the halls of power. For what it's worth, Zelenskyy played the part in Russian. After that series came to an end, Zelenskyy left Quarter 95 behind him to form his own political party named after his extremely popular TV series. At that point, he finally made the switch from speaking in Russian to Ukrainian. In 2019, he'd achieve a landslide victory despite the fact that many people at the time were concerned that Zelensky's centrism would wind up with him getting too comfortable with Russia. Kinda ironic now, isn't it? At first, Zelenskyy's record as president was middling. Question marks began to spring up when several of his Quarter 95 cohorts followed him into the government. Then, he straight up banned 3 TV networks who tended to paint him in an unflattering light. Finally, there was the entire ordeal with Donald Trump, which played out the world on stage and would result in the eventual impeachment of the US president. Not that that really amounted to much. What I'm trying to say is that there were doubts over his capabilities to lead up until recently as this year. Then Russia invaded. As soon as Russian tanks began to invade the country of Ukraine, it became painfully obvious that the Ukrainians would be outmatched when it came to things like military might and weaponry. But what the Russians didn't count on was Zelenskyy weaponizing quite possibly the most important thing of all, the narrative. It took 3 statements from Zelenskyy to turn the tide of his career and transform him into a national hero. The first was his speech on the eve of the war, delivered in Russian and aimed at the Russian people, refuting Putin's story that the Ukraine had plans to bomb the region of Donbass. His next career-defining moment was his legendary response to the Biden administration, offering to evacuate him from the capital. Finally, in that same clip was perhaps the most powerful moment of all, when he told the world that despite Russia's best efforts, they were all defending their independence. That was more than enough to bolster the spirits of his fellow Ukrainian countrymen and inspire many of them to create their own signature moments of defiance, like when an island full of Ukrainian soldiers told an advancing warship to go F themselves, the last thing any of them ever did. And they weren't the only ones. Much like their leader, the Ukrainian people have defied the Russians at every turn. Whether they're telling soldiers to put some seeds in their pocket or interrupting live broadcasts, the entire country of Ukraine is ready to disrupt Putin's diabolical plans. And then there's the memification of Zelenskyy himself. I'm sure no one ever imagined seeing Zelenskyy's face on Chris Evans' body before, but now it's pretty much everywhere. As much fun and encouraging that is, there's very much a non-zero chance that by the time this video is shot and edited that Zelenskyy might have been attacked and killed. A truly terrifying proposition. In fact, while we were writing this, the Ukrainian government announced they had foiled an assassination plot against Zelenskyy, destroying the Chechen servicemen who were sent from Russia to kill him. It's a topic that Zelenskyy himself has addressed on television, stating that not only is he public enemy number 1, but so too is his family. And yet despite all that, Zelenskyy continues to be the face of the resistance, fighting tooth and nail to keep the Russian aggressors at bay. Look, the truth is simple. Zelenskyy isn't a superhero despite how we might perceive him right now. He's also not a living meme or a way for most of us to live out our revenge fantasies against people who impose their power over others. He's simply a man who took a stand and said no in the face of blatant atrocities. So here's to hoping that he not only manages to achieve victory in the war against Russia, but that he also provides an example if any of us are ever called to do the same. I hope you guys have taken something from this story. Please remember to leave your comments of support for the people of the Ukraine in the comments down below. We're cheering you guys on. Thanks for checking out this video. Subscribe if you're new to the channel and leave a comment for who you'd like us to feature next.